There we go. Good morning, 6:01. On this Monday morning, January 13th, this is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in beautiful Chippewa Falls. Have not set up my monitor here. You don't need to see my kitchen quite that much, do you? No. There, we'll do a little bit of this. We'll move this microphone over here. There. We're ready for a show now. On this Monday morning, we will talk about the Packer game. Because, that's all we got for the next 40 days till Brewers spring training comes around. We'll talk about this being basically the last week of normal in America, as the Trump inauguration is 1 week from today. In our second hour, we will talk to Dane County Judge Susan Crawford, candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, and what she has to say about running against Scott Walker's former Attorney General Brad Schimmel in that very important race that's coming up on April 1st. Bundle up, bundle up, bundle up. The wind chills are around 20-25 below zero out there. We've got so much more ahead on this Monday morning, starting at 6:06, all across the Civic Media Radio Network and right here. We'll see you soon.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Monday morning, January 13th, 2025, and it's another beautiful freezing cold day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, on the Civic Media app by podcast, or watching us on Facebook or YouTube. Thanks for starting your week right here. I've got a question for you. Would you feel better if I told you it was only 40 days until the Brewers' first spring training game? Or Roger from Stevens Point puts on Facebook, well, only 30 days till pitchers and catchers report for spring training. So we've got that much going for us after a Packer playoff loss that was not unexpected, but still, I don't, it was harsh. It really was. And I forget the play-by-play guy's name, not Tom Brady, but the other guy. When he said at one point, it feels like the Eagles should be up 78-0, but it was only at that point something like, 20 or 13-3 or something like that. But the Packers just could never get anything going. It wasn't all on them. For once, I feel like I'm the one complaining more about the referees than anybody else, but there were some things in there that just seemed to match the entire flow of the game. The things that they missed for calls against the Packers, the things that they called on the Packers. Look, like I said, I walked in there going, all right, let's get this whipping over with, and that's exactly what it was. You can't complain about the season. It was a good season. We are still one of the youngest team in the NFL, the youngest team in the playoffs. There is talent there. There were injuries, but no excuses. It's all done. Philly won fair and square. They advanced in the playoffs, and that's where we find ourselves at the end of another Packer season, and now 40 days in the sports desert until the Brewer spring training begins. Unless you like to follow the Bucks, the Badgers, Marquette, basketball, college hockey, all are still going on. Coming up on the program today, well, this is basically you're going to look back on this one. You're going to say, oh yeah, that was the last week of normal. Donald Trump is inaugurated 1 week from today. And so heading into this final week of the Biden presidency, this week of confirmation hearings getting going for Trump's, I don't even want to say cabinet. I like what somebody else called it, Trump's junk drawer. There's still some names out there that are just head scratchers that they haven't already withdrawn, but these are the times that we're going to live in. So we'll talk about what's coming up in the Trump administration 1 week from today. And then in our second hour, we are going to hear a couple of important voices here. We are going to talk with Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate Susan Crawford. She's a Dane County judge who is running for state Supreme Court against Scott Walker's former Attorney General Brad Schimmel for a pivotal role on the state's high court. That election will be on April 1st. And Selena Heller will join us as well, Up North News reporter. She spoke with former Governor Marty Schreiber. Wisconsin's 39th governor served in office the same time as America's 39th president in the late 1970s. And so Marty Schreiber will talk a bit about his memories of the former president. And Selena will join us as well. Temperatures right now around Wisconsin at the bus stop. I mean, you already knew it was going to be very cold, but let me reinforce how important it is to bundle up. I mean, just taking the trash out this morning, that wind hits you. It's not like it's a terribly windy day, but with temperatures below zero, it doesn't take much wind to really drop that wind chill. Here in Chippewa Falls, the temperature is 5 below zero. The wind chill is 21 below. Hayward's at -8 for a temperature right now. Amory's 9 below. Wausau 3 above. La Crosse 2 degrees above zero. Wisconsin Rapids is sitting right at zero. You ran out of degrees there, Rapids. Green Bay is at 13. Madison 7 right now. Waukesha 10. And at Radio Park in Racine, it is 15 degrees, where we find the one, the only, the Civic Media t-shirt clad Greg Bach.
Hello.
Hello. Who likes, when he gets the chance on Sundays, to just cash out on the couch, but unfortunately, even if you'd gotten that chance, you would have had to be exposed to a Packer playoff game. And for that, I'm sorry. Maybe next Sunday.
Well, next Sunday I get a day off, which is nice. This past Sunday, yesterday, I was very, very busy and just had to watched the score on my phone and was never shocked for one moment. And yeah, and everyone we had a show last night, and the show got going as the game ended, and people were sort of like, "Yep." No one did that, like, "Oh, don't talk about the game." It's just like, "Yep, that was the grand calculus of time in a linear direction."
Well, it was
we
really
are going to lose.
It was the Bears' loss that did it. I mean, that game was just so upsetting.
Yeah.
And nobody came out of that game going, "Oh, don't worry, guys, we'll get it next week." It's like, no. After that, this is what you did with the Bears. There's clearly something going on. Well, there were a lot of things going on. There were injuries and mental miscues, and it again reinforces this thing that Jordan Love is a very good quarterback. He is an above average quarterback.
Yeah.
But if we were expecting to be spoiled yet again, I mean, where it turned out Aaron Rodgers was great almost out of the chute. Brett Favre was not expected to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. He was. Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Fame quarterback. Jordan Love not looking like that yet. Not to say that he can't, but we just need the realistic expectation that we're going to get frustrated a lot watching him overthrow or underthrow or the short screens, the little short screen passes. They just make me absolutely crazy, especially when it's like 3rd and long, 3rd and 12. Well, here's a little doink 3 yards over to the left here. No. Not gonna get it done. So, and a lot of people put things on coaching, having never coached football. I'm always, I don't jump on the coaches as much just because I don't know strategy and I just see the players either executing or not executing. But obviously, there's going to be chatter, today especially about Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff, and do you keep them around? And I'm like, be patient. I'm okay with that.
As far as, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you are with regard to like deep knowledge, but in my opinion, a team like they had last season, where they, to do as well as they did last season and to keep that momentum going this season, I not only would keep that entire coaching staff, I'd make sure they stayed, because I feel like they're 1 to 2 seasons away from doing something very special.
I agree. Yeah.
So this any short-sightedness coming from, from the fans, you can't get them to sit down and understand logic. And like as a group of people, individually, you can make them say like, "Hey, this is an investment in time, energy, and money." But as a group, you're going to have people saying, "Off with their heads!" Like, no, look at what you got last season. It was like with the Brewers this past season. Everyone said the Brewers were going to suck, and they did really well for their situation. Yeah. And so let's see what happens this time.
I'm good with that. Look, at some point you've had enough time. Think about how for literally for years, 2-3 years, the most popular phrase in Wisconsin was "fire Dom Capers," who was then the defensive coordinator of the Packers. But people had seen enough and could go, "Yeah, this is on, this is some bad coaching." But like I said, I'm with you. I'm not prepared to really say that yet. Tony writes from up in Ashland, "It's balmy and 1 below out." It's the humidity, really, Tony says.
It's the shorts and tanning butter on.
Oh, yeah. Tony writes, "It really was a lot on the wide receiver injuries. They had touchdowns and first downs that didn't happen because routes were off by just a little bit. The play calls were good. There's no denying Christian Watson tearing that ACL. That was a killer for us. And then the other injuries that, Romeo Doubs going down with a possible concussion, and we were running out of tools real fast. Yeah. And so we enjoyed it, and now we bear winter, as Alicia writes on YouTube. It's just a tad cool out. Yep. It's just a flesh wound. It's nothing. My arm didn't fall off from frostbite. I'll be fine. It's okay.
Now it's time to take back to the hut, eat that which we have hunted in the fall and saved, and brace ourselves for a winter that will be long.
It's a good thing I saved up all that whale blubber here in the igloo.
Exactly. See?
Something's got to get me through. Well, let's turn our attention to things like the Up North News Daily Newsletter, which you can get every weekday morning, nice and early, by signing up at our website, upnorthnewswi.com. Christina Laurie puts that together for us. And let's see. Well, you know what? I'm pulling it up right now, and she says, "We were hoping to begin today's newsletter with an emphatic Go Pack Go, after a Green Bay upset in Philadelphia. While, spoiler alert, that didn't happen. She writes, the Packers season was still a success. We improved from 9-8 a year ago to 11-6. Became the NFL's first ever team to 800 wins. We got to know Josh Jacobs. We watched Xavier McKinney record 5 interceptions in 5 weeks. Watched Malik Willis become a better backup than some team starters. And made our 37th trip to the postseason the most of any team. Pretty good for a little fan-owned team from America's smallest market, huh? And I mean, look what Christina Laurie just did. Put us all on the bright side. This is why we call her segment the Uplift. I mean, she's our Susie Sunshine.
There's only one thing I take issue with. Only one thing. And as speaking as a Brewers fan, whenever we say we made it to the postseason, I'm like, yeah, I feel like now we should have to make it to round 2.
Yes. Yeah. This part is very true.
Yeah.
Also in the newsletter, of course, we've got a new session of the Wisconsin legislature underway. And one of the many new state representatives, Christian Phelps from Eau Claire, who's been on the program a number of times, has written an editorial column. You can find it on our website as well, UpNorthNewsWI.com. And it talks about the journey from back in last March, when it had never crossed his mind to ever run for office, to considering and becoming a candidate for assembly, the reasons why he decided to run, and the things that he wants to get done now that he is a member of the Wisconsin legislature. So again, you can read that editorial column by Christian Phelps at our website, UpNorthNewsWI.com. There's an excerpt in today's newsletter, and you can sign up to be a subscriber to the newsletter as well over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. When we come back, we'll take a review of some of the other headlines on this last full week of the Biden administration before the first week of the Trump administration, wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Monday morning, this cold Monday morning. When you're here, you are truly up north, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network.
There's nothing you can do to turn me away. Nothing anyone can say. You're with me now, and as long
The number one album 52 years ago this week was by Carly Simon. It was her third album, No Secrets, featuring the hit single You're So Vain. We'll hear from that later on, as well as that song right there, Lovin' You's the Right Thing to Do. Today's history lesson coming up in about a half hour here on Up North News Radio on this Monday morning, January 13th. Nice to have you along. I'm Pat Kreitlow, and looking at some of the headlines from last week, there was one closer to home that I wanted to pass along. The University of Wisconsin at the Madison campus School of Engineering building is going to get an infusion of funds thanks to other projects. The engineering building, already a big project, already delayed once before significantly by Republicans in the legislature, was delayed again a bit a couple of weeks back when Republicans on the State Building Commission balked at moving some funds from other campuses where projects had come in under budget to the Madison campus so that they could stick to the budget and make some additions to the engineering building. You'll recall a couple of weeks back, I said I frankly understood the Republican Building Commission members' frustration there. Not so much about the engineering building, but I just thought it was wrong that as an Eau Claire grad, want to make that clear, that new science building that they're building on the Eau Claire campus is decades overdue. And I'm happy that it is currently $70 million under budget, but it ain't done yet. And so even if it stays under budget all this time, I obviously have a bit of a parochial point of view in thinking, well, if Eau Claire did a project that came in $70 million under budget, I'm not saying that they should get to keep $70 million in cash. I'm not backing up, a Brinks truck full of gold bars or anything, but it just felt a little awkward. And I think any of the non-Madison campuses would say this, over coming in under budget and then tens of millions of dollars going down to the Madison campus. And I say that as somebody who fully supports the engineering school there. I think it's going to do a lot to be more competitive with other Big Ten schools. I think it's going to be a jobs pipeline for the state of Wisconsin. It's going to get more UW graduates to stay in the state of Wisconsin instead of leaving. It was just a little untoward looking at how it was handled to move the money around. But the Board of Regents, not the Board of Regents, the State Building Commission has since held another vote and has voted to release the funds from Eau Claire and other projects so that the engineering building can be finished. The fight will go on in Congress this week over President-elect Trump's cabinet nominations. The actual nomination or confirmation votes can't be held until Trump takes office, but you can begin the hearings and beginning to learn more about the nominees. And obviously, we've learned a lot about some of these nominees already. We've learned enough to know these are people that are unqualified for the job or a threat to the country in their taking the job. Pete Hegseth, for example, is a talking head on Fox News. I'm a talking head on the radio, but I'm not asking to run America's military. And Hegseth has some extremely well-documented issues with alcohol use, with women, with points of view about things like women in combat and other ways that he might run the department. But Donald Trump picks people based on what he sees on TV. And he has, at last count, it was at least 10 different people from the Fox so-called news channel that he has picked for various roles in the administration. And then in his mind, it doesn't matter that it's Pete Hegseth. It doesn't matter that it's Tulsi Gabbard. And it doesn't matter if it's a ham sandwich. If he nominates a ham sandwich to be Secretary of Defense, he expects the Republicans in Congress to fall in line because that's how he runs things. He is accountable to no one and will almost always listen to the last person in the room. I reach over here for one of my this was one of my this was a birthday present last year, not a Christmas present, but the George Stephanopoulos book, The Situation Room. The Situation Room, not the terrible Wolf Blitzer thing on CNN, the actual Situation Room in the White House. George Stephanopoulos, I finally finished this book over the weekend. A wonderful history of the Situation Room from when it was first conceived by one of JFK's top aides to its construction, much remodeling, many technology upgrades, and then behind the scenes vignettes of all manner of crises. From the Kennedy assassination all the way through like the Nixon presidency, where some folks might recall, I mean, there were times when Nixon was just blackout drunk and other people had to make decisions for him. There was, of course, the failed mission to rescue the hostages in Iran during the Carter presidency. And on it goes through the Obama administration's raid to kill bin Laden. And then up through the Trump presidency, where, again, the people who served in the Situation Room, these are some of the most brilliant minds in the military, and not just the people at the top. We're talking about all the aides and things that have to monitor a steady stream of information from all over the world. And they gather that only to, I would remind you, during Trump's first term, when he was in Helsinki with Vladimir Putin, said at a news conference that he believed what Putin said over what all of his advisors were telling him, what the military was telling him. And look, there's times when you get it wrong. Think weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But that's the exception rather than the rule. And there is no doubt, as you read in this book and others, that Trump's decision-making is based much less on any kind of informed thinking and reasoning and weighing various options, and instead shooting from the hip or the lip, as the case may be. Oftentimes, the last person that was in the Oval Office with him would upend something that he had decided an hour earlier. And this is what we're heading back into. We can't change him, but we can certainly give his cabinet nominations fair scrutiny. Back with more after this. You're Up North.
Loving you's the right thing. Loving you's the
Hey, look yonder coming down that railroad track. Hey, look yonder coming down that railroad track. It's that orange blossom special, bringing my baby back.
That crowd noise you're hearing is at the Folsom Prison in California, and we'll tell you about Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison, and a little record that he made coming up in our history lesson in about 15 minutes here or so on Up North News Radio. Again, you can follow what we do at upnorthnewswi.com. Did you, Greg Bach, at Radio Park in Racine?
Hello.
First off, I was making sure that you were still at the tropical location here in Wisconsin. Yes, you are at 15 degrees.
Yes.
You're, and again, in a Civic Media T-shirt, you weather it all.
Well, I'm a big guy, so I'm warm all the time, and I got a nice jacket here. So, I mean, it's nice and cozy in the studio, let me tell you. Excuse me. But outside, I woke up this morning and I looked at my phone and I went, God. What? I was just because it was 16 degrees outside.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning around this time, I always look at the weather, and I'm just like hoping for 25.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it didn't give me 16. And then I walk outside, my mustache is frozen, and then it's just not good.
It's funny, the little difference just a few degrees can make, here or there.
Yes.
In fact, somebody was telling me last week that they were so sure that their kids would be inside and not on the playground, but sure enough, the kids were on the playground because the cutoff was 10 degrees. And I think it was like 15, and the kids were outside playing, which kind of surprised her. But that's every school district's got its rules, and I suppose it's up to the parents to know the rules. But
yeah, I thought it was like 30 degrees, and below that they stay inside. Okay.
Well, that's certainly what I would have done, but I'm not the superintendent, so what do I know? Yeah. Let's see. Alicia writes in on Facebook, my boxer went out and came back in. No shenanigans. Yes. We saw. I told you one of our favorite hobbies now for me and Sherry is to just pass our phones back and forth as we get stupid videos coming up on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. And I think she had the one last night of the two types of dogs. There's the one dog that runs out and plays in the snow and jumps in the snowbank, and the other takes 2 steps, piddles on your welcome mat, and comes right back in. Says, nope, that's it.
Maybelle is definitely the first. She gets outside. The cold doesn't really bother her because she knows exactly when to come inside. Mm-hmm. But she definitely doesn't do like, no, I'm out of here. She's like, no, I'm going to run around a little bit. I'm going to try to eat some snow. I'm going to bark some squirrels, and then I'll come inside. It's like she gets it, but I'm like, this is too cold for you, honey. It's too much.
Well, again, at least it's not the 2 steps thing. So Tony writes in on YouTube from Ashland, our outside temp at school is 0. If it's not negative, kids are outside.
Wow.
But again, that's Ashland, up there on the Arctic Circle. This is this is the tundra. And now he adds, to quote Queen Elsa, the cold never bothered me anyway. Good for you, Tony. That's what we need. That's what you need if you're going to live up, on the lake like that.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, yeah.
Contrast that with one Dr. Lyerly, who normally joins us at this time on Mondays and is winging her way homeward as we speak from some tropical climate that I thought we might hear about today, but we're going to have to wait till next week. But she's had a lovely break. But you've got a break before long. I've got a break next month. This is what you have to have something to anticipate to get you through the winter. Mm-hmm. And for me, that still hasn't been spring training, but someday that's kind of one of my bucket list things.
Same here. And I really want to go. Like, my mom and I have been talking about doing this for years, and now her and her lovely male companion, they go to Arizona every March for a few weeks, and they go to spring training. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to get there for a little bit, just a couple days, and just because I want to go see spring training with her before it's too late, and I want to go to spring training too. So I was thinking, Pat, maybe you and we could talk to the Courier News / Up North News people, and maybe make it a business trip. Pat Kreitlow live from spring training.
Let's see. I've been with Courier for 5 years. If you
Yeah.
think I haven't figured out a way by now to expense a spring training trip, you know that's something I ain't figured out yet. But I'll keep thinking about that.
Come on, buddy.
Yep, how we can get this done. We've been talking about the transition to the Trump administration and needed a moment of levity before we dove back in to tell you the one of the other news stories about that. It turns out in this story from the Associated Press, incoming senior Trump administration officials have begun questioning career civil servants who work in the White House National Security Council about who they voted for in the 2024 election, their political contributions, and whether they have made social media posts that could be considered incriminating by President-elect Donald Trump, according to a U.S. official familiar with the matter. At least some of these non-political employees have begun packing up their belongings since being asked about their loyalty to Trump, after they had been given indications that they would be asked to stay on at the National Security Council in the new administration. Trump's pick for National Security Advisor, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz, publicly signaled his intention to get rid of all non-political appointees and career intelligence officials by Inauguration Day to ensure the council is staffed with toadies. I'm sorry, no, it's with those who support Trump's agenda. Well, basically the same thing, in so many words. This is a 5-alarm fire. There's just no other way to put this. And I just got done talking about the Situation Room and having independent civil servants who are there to serve the country. And that's the difference with this far right faction. You call it MAGA, you call it Trumpist, you call it whatever it was, whatever you want to call it. They do not believe in such a thing as nonpartisan public service, that there are people who actually just want to serve their country. They believe that, I don't even think it's that they believe that everybody is either Republican or Democrat. I don't think they care about that. I think it's either you're with us or you're against us. Let me use the situation from when I served in the legislature. And the same definitely applies to Congress. I'm absolutely sure of this. The support staff, the nonpartisan support staff, whether it's the support staff that keeps the Situation Room running in the White House, or the Legislative Fiscal Bureau in Madison, the Legislative Reference Bureau, a host of other offices there. They serve year after year after year, no matter who's in charge, no matter who's the governor, no matter what party runs the legislature. And they are some of the most amazing, decent, whip-smart, patient people you could ever want to meet. And they're there for a host of reasons. I'm sure the pay and the benefits aren't terrible, but you get to know them. And you understand that they know that they have talents, they have skills that can be put to use in serving their state, in serving their country, in serving their community. Now imagine, a Donald Trump type character coming in, let's say Scott Walker were to be reelected governor or something like that, were to come in and to say to all these people, some of whom have served for decades, and to be asked, who did you vote for? And when you hear about people packing up their things and leaving, it's for one of two reasons. It's either they know that they did not vote for Trump and they're essentially being fired, or what's more likely, when you hear about these employees packing up, Trump and his supporters are going to say, you see, we're getting rid of all the liberals. No, there's probably several people there that vote Republican consistently, but they do not want their loyalty questioned. After years of service, who is Donald Trump to question their loyalty? Who is Florida Congressman Mike Waltz to question their loyalty? But they do, not their loyalty to their country, their loyalty to Trump. And they're going to be replaced with people who aren't nearly as skilled, aren't nearly as talented, and certainly not independent enough to speak truth to power. And that's what every administration needs. President, governor, it's what every state legislator needs, is somebody willing to say no. And it coming back to the book here for a moment, and also some of the other things that I've read during the transition. You have people who served in the first Trump administration who now regret their role. At the time, they thought, well, Trump's going to need some help. I'm going to help along. And there were people there saying, no, you can't do that, sir. You can't do that. They were the guardrails. Looking back now, some of them blame themselves for us being put back into this position, I would argue a more dangerous position of Trump coming into office without the guardrails. Because by being his guardrails in the first term, essentially they enabled him, they shielded the country from his worst instincts, and there will be no such shield this time, especially when you see what this is. Call it what it is. It's a purge. It's a purge of good Americans, service-minded, to be replaced with people who are not nearly as good. And I don't know when the word elite became such a bad thing in this country. You know how it's been used. Oh, those elites. I want elites. I want elite members of the military serving in the Navy SEALs, for example. I want elite people. I want the best serving our country or our state or our community. I want people that can be described as elite. And you know what? If it describes their attitude as well for some of them because they know their stuff, I'm okay with that. If they know their stuff and if they perform. But Trump and many others prior to him got way too much traction with some voters by saying, oh, we're going to get rid of those haughty elites. And people kind of shook their fist and said, oh, yeah, let's get rid of those, get rid of the pointy-headed people out there. It's like, I don't know when we decided to stop valuing high intelligence matched up with a notion to serve. But that's what we're going to see now. And trust me, I've heard the voices from before this election and now after this election saying, you guys are making too big a deal about this. The country didn't go to hell when Trump was president the first time. It'll be fine. It will not be fine. And it was not fine the first time. There are many, many Americans who died who did not have to because of how Trump botched the pandemic. There are people around the world who died because Trump shifted alliances. Ask the Kurds what happened when troops from Turkey were able to come in and start killing them at large after years of Kurdish support for the U.S. There were real consequences to Trump's first time in office. And I'm not here to sound alarmist. I'm not. I'm here to say, folks made their choice, and there are not going to be as many guardrails this time around, especially in Congress, where, again, that's a place where somebody, a co-equal branch of government, could stand up and say no. It also isn't happening in the U.S. Supreme Court, where the 3 justices that Trump appointed last time, because Mitch McConnell stole a couple of those seats, will, even if Congress were to stand up, this Supreme Court is probably able to get in the way of Congress and say, nope, Mr. President, whatever it is you want to do, you have the right to do that. Which reminds me, if in fact this Supreme Court thinks that presidents can do almost anything as long as they believe it's part of their official duties, well, President Biden, you got 6.5 days. And I would say don't waste a moment of it in some of your final official duties. Like, I don't know, release the special counsel's report today. Today's history lesson is next. You're up north.
They're probably drinking coffee and smoking big cigars. Well, I know I had it coming. hear the train a-comin', it's rolling around a bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on.
The album itself begins before the song does with him just saying, "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." Everybody knows that. Everybody who used to do impressions of him, it starts with that. In today's history lesson, we're topping off with Johnny Cash, who played 2 shows for inmates at Folsom Prison in California. It was not his first prison concert. He'd played several.
Just to watch him die.
This was the first one that was recorded and packaged and became the acclaimed live album at Folsom Prison.
I hang my head and cry.
Let's see, also in today's history lesson, it was on this day in 1962 that Gene Chandler released a song. You might not know the name, but you've definitely heard the song and maybe tried to do an impression of it once or twice yourself.
Do 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 cowbell do 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 cowbell do 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 cowbell do 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 cowbell do 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 cowbell.
On this same day in 1962, as Gene Chandler was releasing Duke of Earl, we get to today's birthdays. Born this day in 1962, making him 63 years old today, would be country singer Trace Atkins, who had this little ditty.
His fault is so hard not to stare at that honky tonk, but don't get gone.
I don't even know.
We've really kind of come alpha and omega on the music timeline, you know, this very romantic Duke of Earl. Can't wait to meet her. And honky donk, badonka donk. Trace Atkins, 63 years old.
I think Trace was in his late 40s when he did this song. I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
you're like a grandpa.
Yep. There's no way to make this transition now. Selena Heller joins us, UpNorthNews reporter.
What?
She literally signed on just as badonka donk.
I know.
Badonkadonk.
I know. I see her popping
Perfect.
up, and I'm like, well, I got no way to make this one. So good
Here
morning,
we are.
Selena. How are you?
Badonkadonk. That's where I'm starting off this Monday morning.
That's right.
I wanted to say really quick, Pat, that at one of his many concerts, but what Johnny Cash's San Quentin Prison concert,
Yes.
Merle Haggard was in the audience.
Yes, that's right. I was going to mention that. Thank you for catching that. Yes, that's
and
right.
he was serving 15 years. He had been in prison he'd escaped many times. He planned to be a prisoner for the rest of his life if he wasn't doing crime. And seeing Johnny Cash perform changed his life, and he became one of the most prolific songwriters in country music as an artist. So yeah, Merle Haggard, just sitting there watching Johnny Cash singing some country music. It's good stuff.
But again, it's that reminder, you never know who you're influencing. You never know.
Yeah.
Somebody has heard something. And I know there are people, teachers and others, they'll never know the impression that they made on me and the things that I emulate, because of them. And so you got to be watching yourself all the time out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Julie Louis-Dreyfus, the actor, 64 years old today. I watch her every year on Christmas Vacation. Apparently, there was some show she was on. Seinfeld, was it? Was that the name of it?
I just know her I only know her from her work from SNL back in the 80s.
You're one of the few, yes.
Yeah.
And Shonda Rhimes is 55 years old today. How many shows has Shonda Rhimes written or produced or put out? We got to be in double digits by now in terms of network shows by her. She's just she is to the early 2000s what Taylor Sheridan is right now with Yellowstone and everything else.
Just 12. She's at 12.
12. There you go. Double digits. Yep. I don't know if Grey's Anatomy was maybe the first.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And just,
I'll wait for someone to correct us.
oh, they always do. Let's see. We mentioned Carly Simon before. Her third album, No Secrets, hit #1 this day in 1973.
Self-covered, and all the girls dream that they'd be your partner, they'd be your partner, and you're so vain.
Let's see. It was on this day in 2018 that a false emergency alert warning of an impending missile strike in Hawaii caused widespread panic in the state. You guys remember that at all? Just people in Hawaii, their phones were all blowing up.
Yes.
Like, imminent missile strike, take shelter.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how scary.
I know. It's like, and then, the follow-up comes, oops,
Just kidding.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, remember that message?
Wasn't that funny? Remember that time?
Fooled you.
Yeah. It was on this day. Wow. Can't believe it's been 5 years. This day, 5 years ago, the Ministry of Public Health in Thailand confirmed the first COVID-19 case outside of China.
Whoa.
On this day, 4 years ago, outgoing President Donald Trump was impeached for a second time, this one on a charge of inciting an insurrection. And once again, Republican senators let him off the hook. On
Outgoing,
this
that sounds
day,
so good.
No. On this day, 3 years ago. Oh, Selena doesn't know what this is. Selena, this song 3 years ago became the first video to reach 10 billion views on YouTube. Care to take a guess? Just think. You've been a parent of a little
Come on.
kid. Think parent of a little kid.
I only know like Blippi and
Go ahead and play it, Greg.
Mommy shark do 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 do
Oh,
do.
my
Mommy
heavens.
shark do 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 do. Mommy shark do 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 do.
oh my
Yep.
gosh.
Baby
Yeah, we
Shark
play that a lot.
reached 10 billion views on YouTube. Yeah.
And now it's at 15 billion.
Oh,
my
my
gosh.
goodness.
This is National Korean American Day. Happy Korean American Day to the 2 million Korean Americans out there. National Rubber Ducky Day, National Gluten-Free Day, National Clean Your Desk Day. Selena Heller's going to be back after the news, and we're going to hear from former Governor Marty Schreiber about former President Jimmy Carter with his passing. Martin Schreiber was governor at about the same time. But we're going to close the segment remembering the great Sam Moore of Sam and Dave. He passed away on Friday at the age of 89. He and Sam and Dave gave us Soul Man and I Thank You. And I still love his duet with Conway Twitty, A Rainy Night in Georgia. But here's arguably the biggest Sam and Dave song for Sam Moore. Back after the news on Up North News Radio. Tony, you can't just play Baby Shark. That's dangerous. Look, it attracted a cat.
Yeah, no kidding. You did.
Hello, Whiskers. So. Let's see. All right, so we got your 2 Marty Bites.
And he's coming on tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll have you mention that. What else? What did you have the other day?
The other day.
Jessica Walks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What day was that? Was that Thursday or Friday?
Friday.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'll ask you about that conversation as well. So,
Okay.
all right. Back in a bit.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Good morning. Welcome back to Up North News Radio, unabashedly Wisconsin, and brought to you by Courier Newsroom, carried by our friends here on the Civic Media Radio Network at 7:06 on this Monday morning, January 13th, 2025. The unofficial first day of winter, sports winter, they call it here in Wisconsin, after the Packer loss in the playoffs. But as Tony points out on YouTube, the Snow Queen delivered this weekend. Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah,
Brittany
thanks,
Merlot.
Brittany.
Yeah, she gets all the thank yous, all the flavors of thank yous. Absolutely. You enjoyed it, though. You enjoyed having some snow and some cooler weather.
Yes, absolutely. And gosh, there's like 6 inches to 8 inches that was recorded up in towards Bayfield County. So the
Okay.
South Shore really getting hit, which is awesome news.
All right. Let's see. Selena Heller's here. Greg Bach here as well. And Rob from Tigerton, who says, good morning. It's cloudy and 2 degrees with a wind chill of 17 below. Winds are out of the west at 15. Roads in western Shawano County range from slippery spots and stretches on Highway 29 and 45 to ice covered on the county and town roads. He says he's been up plowing and salting since 2:30 a.m. on Sunday. Plowed in the morning, salted in the afternoon, watched the Packers-Eagles game at his sister Debbie's house. Burned out from a Packer loss. Defense played well, but the offense was out of sync and hurt. He said Tigerton got an inch of snow, but the freezing rain cut things down from the expected 2 to 4 inches. And he also heard Carly Simon before and wants to get on the record that his favorite Carly Simon song is "Oh Jessie." No,
Nice.
sorry, Rob. That answer's incorrect. It's
I feel like we should. I want to call this like it's just a mini segment called the Tigerton Report.
it is basically,
Good.
yeah. Look, if Tigerton doesn't have a newspaper, then this is essentially it, and we are proud to provide
Full
that
report.
service. Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. So yeah, we did get the snow. Now we've got this bone-chilling cold. How long does this stick around?
Oh, this is definitely going to be here all day today and lingering into tomorrow as well before we start to see any sort of warm up. So right now it is feeling double digits below zero into the western half of the state, about single digits below zero into the eastern half. And of course, that's going to be our highs. What you're feeling right now is what it's going to feel like all day. Actual high temperatures will climb to the single digits to low teens, but with the winds out of the west gusting up to 30 miles per hour throughout the afternoon, we're all going to be feeling sub-zero all day long. So bundle up and try to get some sunshine because it is going to be sunny through the day today. We'll see some flurries flying around by early tomorrow morning, but the cold still has a grip on us tomorrow. Highs don't change up until Wednesday, and a nice warm-up does hit us on Thursday and Friday, where temperatures are going to be nearing 40. So a roller coaster.
40. See, now I've got a friend who is extremely happy about this cold weather. Probably less so about the coming 40s because he's getting new lake stairs and he's on a high bank, kind of like me.
Yeah.
And so if the company that's doing it's like, well, when we're going to take down your old steps, and if you got 15 inches of ice, we can just come out there and load up the material and leave. Whereas if we got to haul it all up the hill, it's going to cost you extra. So he's been out here rooting for 15 inches of ice. And
Jeez.
look, we all have our goals. His goal is 15 inches of ice.
I like how you're sitting here telling me the woes of a guy who has lake living. Like, oh no, you're lake.
Hard.
It's his project, not ours.
Do you know? So what's good? Have you seen the pictures out of Eagle River of the ice castle? They get
Yes,
to have an
gorgeous.
ice castle this year
What?
because
Yes.
it's cold.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It is.
Greg right away is going to. Yeah, I see it pop up on Facebook all the
It is
time.
so cool.
Isn't it cool?
The
It's
volunteer fire
glorious.
department and just volunteers put that together in 5 days.
I'm kind of surprised Brittany's not broadcasting from there. You know, the Ice
I might
Queen
have to.
in the
I'm
ice
surprised.
castle.
Good.
You know, this would be
Really
I'm
perfect.
surprised she hasn't moved in. Like she's
I might be asking how much rent will be for tomorrow.
this
Well,
is my domain.
Rob can help you because he writes in from Tigerton on Facebook. Thank you, Snow Queen, to make money the last few days. So there you
You're
go.
welcome.
Brittany, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, guys. You too.
All right. Remember, you can sign up for our newsletter, UpNorthNewsWI.com. Christina Laurie puts it together and has the positive spin on the Packer season. Yeah, things didn't go well with the playoff game yesterday, but there were plenty of pluses throughout the course of the season and reasons to be optimistic for the future. We will be hearing in our second hour from Dane County Judge Susan Crawford. She's a candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court. She will be running on April 1st against Brad Schimmel, who is Scott Walker's old attorney general from Walker's second term in office. And Schimmel is running an overtly partisan campaign, and Judge Crawford has certainly noticed and is going to tell us more about that, I'm sure, in the coming moments. But before we get to Judge Crawford, we're going to hear from former Governor Marty Schreiber, who served as a governor in the late 70s. Selena Heller's here and had a chance to talk with the former governor about his memories of Jimmy Carter for his state funeral that was held last week. Selena, it sounds like it was a really nice conversation.
Oh my gosh, it was my favorite thing of the week.
All right.
He was just a lovely person to talk to. He was driving in a car and we chatted for quite a while. And he travels all over the state now. He has a book out, so that's what he's going out and about talking about that. And he's just for him, Jimmy Carter was quite an inspiration. And he lived long, of course, to do all these human service projects, and that's kind of the inspiration for Marty too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked to him about a couple of different things, and one of them is Martin Schreiber talking about his inspiration. Let's give a listen.
He really made an impact on me as far as, being forthright with the people and also making sure you're not there to further your term in office. You're there to make decisions that are going to help make this country and our people in a better situation. And so I think he just reinforced that in my mind about my public service.
And that's the thing. Again, you hear this theme a lot, public service and actually serving others. And he noted that the former president did that not just in office, but after he was in office.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he talked about that, all of his projects and how you can do good no matter who you are. And so he was talking to me about that a little bit. So that's, here's Marty talking about that.
So what he proved is that you don't necessarily have to be president of the United States of America in order to make a difference. And, he worked in trying to have people understand the importance of clean water in the very, poor, undeveloped countries. He worked to try and foster, the democratic elections and so forth. And so, people who say they're not president, I can't do anything, and that's baloney. And so, it's just baloney because there's so many things a person can do.
Oh, and we've talked about that plenty of times, increasing people's civic engagement. You don't have to have a lot of money, not even necessarily a lot of time, just being selfless for a little bit.
Oh, right. And he also talked about, he had several encounters with Jimmy Carter coming to Wisconsin or him going to the White House. And one of the funny stories he talks about is Jimmy Carter asked his wife Elaine to dance with him at a national governor's convention. And so they had this beautiful dance. But he also talked about, the love affair of him and Rosalind, Jimmy Carter and Rosalind, and just how the family, he overheard Carter's mom
Miss
talking
Lillian,
to someone.
yes.
and they said, "Aren't you so proud of your son?" And she said, I have two sons and I'm proud of them both, or something like that. And
Yes.
then he talked about that and how, just the love and the pride, was for everyone, not just your son who's a president. And he just beamed so much of the family, and it was really a great conversation.
Yeah, I mentioned the other day I'd entirely forgotten about Miss Lillian and what a character she was during the administration. It was just one of those historical coincidences that Carter was the 39th president. Marty Schreiber was Wisconsin's 39th governor for the 2 years that he served, from 1977 to 1979. And so I guess, are we going to get a chance to visit with him tomorrow as well?
Yes, he's coming on the show tomorrow morning, and he'll talk about more. Now, his kind of, like I mentioned, his focus is on Alzheimer's caregivers. He's a crusader for those with dementia and the caregivers. And because his wife Elaine had Alzheimer's, and his book is called My Two Elaines: Learning, Coping, and Surviving as an Alzheimer's Caregiver. And so it tells of the story of him seeing Elaine they met in high school. I think they're high school sweethearts, to the progression of her having Alzheimer's and not recognizing him eventually. So he travels all over the state talking about those topics. And so that's what we will talk about tomorrow.
And I believe he's 85 years old, roughly.
He is 85.
And he's still
His
cracking
character.
jokes. He's a character.
I was
so
laughing the whole time. He was so, of course, he's got wonderful insight. He goes from talking about being in the back seat of the car, taking Jimmy Carter to the airport and saying, why are you running for president? What's your reason? And that's what he says. He always asks that of a candidate, because that's what, you have to have a reason. And anybody with a good reason is probably going to win, he says, because they're passionate. So anybody who's passionate about what they want to do, that's what he says. That's what he recognized in Jimmy Carter. And then he goes from talking about being in the back seat with Jimmy Carter to just joking with me. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. It's lovely.
I got to talk to him a couple of times as a legislator and a candidate for Congress. And again, just you get some of the best conversations with folks who have served. They no longer have to hold back in what they think about this or that. And that's sometimes the best advice, is somebody that does not have to couch their advice at all. So, Marty Schreiber is definitely one for that. All right. Selena's going to stick around for just a minute. We're going to ask her about the conversation she had last week with Jessica Wachs from the Chippewa Valley, and running away from the horrible wildfires in California. And before that, she's lived in Florida and had to put up with hurricanes. Really kind of puts our below zero temperatures in perspective, doesn't it? So stick around. We'll have more of that from Selena coming up on Up North News Radio. And then in our second half hour, Judge Susan Crawford from Dane County, a candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, will visit with us. And we'll find out from Jane Matnair what's coming up on Matnair on Air as well. Wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this Monday morning, when you're here, you're up north, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network.
got married in a fever, hotter than a peppered crowd.
Johnny and June at the Folsom Prison album. That was part of our history lesson this morning, as it is every morning at 6:50, Monday through Friday. Selena Heller is with us right now. I have to go severely off topic with you guys first, though. Are you familiar with this? I hold this up for them to see. This thing called a mocha pot. It's like a teeny tiny coffee pot, but not quite a percolator, because it's got it sits on top of a little tank of water. You put the water in there. The coffee goes in a basket in the middle, and then it kind of percolates through it. Yeah. And I bring this up because last Labor Day weekend, we were visiting friends in Canada, one of whom was originally from England. And he had one of these contraptions. You put it on your stovetop. And he says, this will make the best espresso you've ever had. And he was right. It was super good. So I asked for this for a Christmas present. Got it as a Christmas present. Finally used it for the first time yesterday. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not regularly like an espresso drinker. I prefer just a big old coffee mug like today's, which says I am silently correcting your grammar on the coffee mug.
Perfect.
But this unique little mocha pot was it gives you some stuff that's really rich and dark. It'll put hair on your chest, as my grandpa used to say.
Can I see that mug real quick again?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me see something. Yeah, there's no period at the end of that sentence.
Oh, jeez.
None. That coffee mug is.
Oh, Greg.
Hey,
It's wrong.
It's ironic. My coffee mug is ironic. Okay.
Don't you think?
I was going to say that, but I stopped.
There you go. Selena Heller joins us. Had a story late last week about the California wildfires, and talking to Jessica Walks, and we played some sound from her the other day, but I just wanted to get your impressions of the conversation for, like so many people, hundreds of thousands of people who've had to get out of harm's way in that area. And, Jess always strikes me as a very measured, she's very solid. There's nothing flighty about her.
Right.
And even with these wildfires, I mean, she just was like, well, this is here. This is what you got to do. You got to get out of the way.
We're here. We have to leave, and we live here, and that's what it happens. And you just have to deal with whatever comes, and that's pretty much what it was. And also, I spoke to a guy named Billy Bowers, and he is also from Eau Claire, and he lives there too. And so it was just kind of much the same. Like they went there. Like Billy went, and he works in the TV and movie industry at a predominant company there. And Jessica went, and she is a singer-songwriter, producer, and that she's following her dreams. And so that's where, you follow the arts, and that's why they're there. And so that's why they live there, and they love it. And it was very difficult for them to see all of these areas that they love burning to the ground. And that was kind of the main point in hearing that. They're there because they love it, but it was very difficult to see the places that they know and love are gone.
Well, especially for Jessica, who has also spent time in Florida, which starts, at some point, does she look at the hurricanes and the wildfires, and does she go, is the problem me?
they're following. I'm causing. No, of course. No, she was in Helene and Hurricane Helene because she lives in Florida, and she lived in California, moved to Florida during the pandemic, and then endured hurricanes. And then she was moving back to California, so she was there trying to find a place to live. And so
this is all to say. It's all to say that her dad, Dana Walks, the attorney up here in Eau Claire, former assembly rep, Dana, we love you, but just can't come back here. We're just saying
we don't want things
that would just not necessarily work for us. Yeah. What are we working on this week? Which is always a loaded question because we have our story meeting, around 9 a.m. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if you have anything in the hopper already, or if we're going to start laying out this week's agenda.
Well, one of the things I think I'm going to do coming up is some winter activities, and you'll see that coming. So what's fun to do in Wisconsin? So we went tubing over the weekend at a ski hill. So Clark County. Yep, you'll hear more of that. Yeah,
Is
no
that- is-
injuries here.
Good,
in this house.
good. God, I used to tube and sled like that all the time, and I think my bones would just turn to dust at the first impact now if that were to happen.
I feel like that. I'm like, oh, I hope this is going to be okay. I'm
gosh.
going to do it. I hope
I
it's
loved
not a
it.
bad outcome.
Let's see. On the coffee pot note, Alicia says, my son uses one of those. He loves his espresso from that. Tony writes in from Ashland. On the coffee cup note, how did Greg wake up today? Does that mean you don't have your coffee mug to show us?
Who said I'm awake? Huh? Who said I'm awake, Tony? I'm asleep. No,
In other words, he didn't wake up looking. What does it normally say?
Sexy. I think it was sexy. My coffee.
Yeah.
Oh.
There it is. Coffee. I've been trying to drink a little less coffee. I was starting to get a little too much, and some of the headaches were coming back.
Talking too fast by the time you and Jane have done
exactly.
at noon.
Exactly. So I've been sticking to water to keep myself hydrated, and a cup of coffee here and there. So
okay, yeah, what I've cut out is the soda, the pop. I usually have.
Yep.
Really?
I had a very regular routine of 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and I'd have a Coke Zero at some other point. And I've cut that out, and
no Coke now.
Have felt better, and it kind of weird.
Buddy.
I know, and now I'm gonna go back to trying this thing called exercise. I'm gonna have to check out a book from the library to see what it is, but I'm gonna try to reacquaint myself with that. Tony writes in on YouTube, "What's too much coffee?"
I don't drink coffee, so I've never even.
You don't?
No.
I didn't start drinking coffee until my late 30s.
I didn't start to my late 40s.
Yeah.
We were very much a Diet Coke or before that Mountain Dew. As a college
When you
student.
wake up in the morning, we're like, I got my morning Diet Coke.
Yeah, yep. That's what we did.
I would bring milk to work at 2:30 in the morning. Milk.
Yep.
Okay.
There she is, Selena.
On that note, folks, goodbye.
It's time for me to go.
Oh, Selena, you just could not be more all-American if you tried. That's funny. Well, thank you for all of that. Thanks for sitting in, and we will. Oh, Tony wants one more jab in here. That thing Dr. Lyerly talks about, exercise, and I like how I think he misspelled that on purpose. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much better I feel next week when Kristen's here, or if I say no, I'm done.
Goodness.
I gave it the old college try. Thanks, Selena. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. When we come back, we'll be talking with Dane County Judge Susan Crawford, candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Next, you're up north.
Go to Texas. Go comb your hair.
Go comb your hair.
Nice.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
And
We're back on Up North News Radio at 7:34 on this Monday morning. Happy to be joined by Judge Susan Crawford of Dane County, candidate for a soon-to-be open seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Judge Crawford, good morning. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show, Pat.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back. We spoke in September, which, again, people were really not thinking about the Supreme Court race yet, but clearly both you and your opponent still had to raise funds, still build name ID and everything. So from September till now, you probably feel a lot better known and probably a lot better scrutinized.
Yeah, we have been getting out all over the state in the last 6 months and talking to a lot of voters and getting people energized about this race, making sure that people know who I am and why I'm in the race and what I'm bringing to it. And I think that we are feeling really good about where we are right now. Have done a great job in getting the resources that we need to run the campaign that we've got to run here. And so, yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident.
Well, we talked about this in September that you were well aware that you were probably going to blow the barn doors off of any previous records for fundraising for a state Supreme Court race. It does not appear to have daunted you too much based on your latest numbers. They seem pretty impressive.
Right. We, I think, have set a record, and I have a great campaign team. As a judge, I am not the one who is making those asks. I'm not asking anybody to make a contribution because the judicial code does not allow that, and I'm really scrupulous in following that rule. But I have a great campaign team who is making sure that we've got the resources that we need to run this race and help voters to understand that I will be a fair, impartial justice on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, that I'll be protecting their rights and looking out for them.
It was only a week ago that we were marking the 4th anniversary of the January 6th insurrection. We had Ruth Kana from the Wisconsin Examiner on last week, Thursday, to talk about her editorial column, raising eyebrows about what former Attorney General and Waukesha County Judge Brad Schimmel had to say about the January 6th defendants and not getting a fair shake in court in D.C., even though that's what typically happens. You get, tried in the places where alleged crimes are being convicted. I wondered if comments like that surprise you about, whether people accused of a violent insurrection deserve some kind of special treatment when it comes to picking the jurisdiction of their court.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't surprised to hear Judge Schimmel making those kinds of comments. It really is par for the course for him. He's running a really extreme partisan campaign. And I think that he had a target audience for those comments that he was trying to reach. It is a little bit surprising, I would say, for a former attorney general and former district attorney, as he is, to be defending violent people who stormed our nation's capital and attacked law enforcement officers in the Capitol. I think it sends a strong message to the voters about what Judge Schimmel stands for. And, it's a shame, really, that we have a sitting judge in the state of Wisconsin that would be making those kinds of attacks, not just against law enforcement officers, but also against the jury system, which is the cornerstone of the American system of justice. And in my courtroom, we don't have any litmus test for serving on a jury, and we get jurors from across the political spectrum. My experience is that they all do their jobs as jurors. They listen to the evidence, they apply the law, and they work together to arrive at a fair verdict in every case. And I always thank every juror who sits on a jury in my courtroom.
It just seems to echo, what you would call the Trumpist rhetoric of, attacking the courts as the president-elect did about being tried in New York, even though that, again, is where the trial would normally be held. Another part of that, Trumpian rhetoric is right on Judge Schimmel's campaign page with the line, "From opening the border to releasing criminals on our streets, rogue judges across the nation are putting their radical agenda above the law. Brad Schimmel will take back the Wisconsin Supreme Court and end the madness." Can you give me your impression when you hear a phrase like rogue judges being used when, your colleagues are out there trying to apply the law as fairly as possible?
Yeah, I don't know any of those rogue justices or judges in Wisconsin. All the judges that I know work really hard to make sure they're doing justice in their courtrooms every day. They're trying to get the facts right and apply the law and get to a fair result. That certainly is what I do in my courtroom every day. And that, I think, is what voters expect judges and the justices on the Wisconsin Supreme Court to do. I think that kind of rhetoric is another example of Brad Schimmel's extreme partisanship. And, he is running to bring a partisan agenda to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. He is not running to be a fair and impartial judge. And that's really the difference between the two of us.
And yet, if the law and order themes that we often hear in Supreme Court races and races for Attorney General, if that's out there, what will not be at issue here is your experience on that, because before you were working in the Doyle administration, before you were working in private practice, you were working as a criminal prosecutor. So you no doubt have already had to tell people that you know a thing or two about prosecuting felony cases.
Absolutely. I started out my legal career in Wisconsin at the Wisconsin Department of Justice. I was a prosecutor, both in the trial court. So I prosecuted white collar crime and abuses against vulnerable people living in nursing homes. And then I also prosecuted felony cases in front of our Wisconsin Supreme Court. I first argued a case in front of the Wisconsin Supreme Court back in 1998, making sure that our communities were kept safe and that folks who had harmed their community or harmed a crime victim were, kept in prison, that they were not able to overturn their convictions on a legal technicality, and that we were all kept safe. So that is an important part of my career, work that I'm really proud of, and an important part of my record.
You also then, not long after that, served in the Wisconsin Department of Corrections, chief of staff to the secretary. And so what extra attributes do you think that brings as a potential Supreme Court justice who has really seen how the corrections department operates, how the prisons operate throughout the entire state?
Right. I've experienced and participated in our criminal justice system from a number of different angles or sides at this point, both as a prosecutor, then when I was helping lead the Wisconsin Department of Corrections, making sure that our communities were safe, particularly as offenders were being released from prison, making sure that they were being supervised appropriately. Part of that is also making sure that services are available to them. So if somebody's got a substance abuse problem that's driving their criminal behavior, to make sure that they have access to treatment resources when they're coming back into the community. Because just about everybody who goes into the prison system is going to come out again. And we were really focused on that reentry process to make sure that we were doing everything that we could to protect public safety for those folks coming out. And then, of course, as a judge, I've presided over criminal cases. I've not hesitated to send someone to prison or jail when that's what's necessary to protect public safety. And sometimes that's what you got to do. And I've always been willing to do that and put public safety at the forefront as I've made decisions.
When you worked for the Department of Natural Resources and headed up the Division of Enforcement, this by and large, as you told me in September, involves some serious violations of environmental law. It's about the water, the air, other natural resources. And yet I sense, and this is the part that I fear will sound flippant, I wonder about a campaign where we're suddenly going to hear that Judge Crawford did more to protect the species of butterfly than, allowing us to open an iron ore mine or something. I wonder if in your time at the Department of Natural Resources working on environmental law, are we going to hear things from the Schimmel campaign or outside interests that they're trying to nitpick whatever they can find about your record?
Right. Well, I don't think they're going to find any cases where we were prosecuting people for not protecting butterflies at that time. But natural resources protection is important. I'll just say that Wisconsin is blessed with abundant and beautiful natural resources that deserve protection, and the legislature has passed laws to protect our clean air and water and our natural resources. And the executive branch has a responsibility for enforcing those laws. I think what we've seen so far from Judge Schimmel's campaign is that when they can't find something, they'll make it up, unfortunately. They are pretty fast and loose with the facts, and I would not be surprised if they attacked my record on environmental enforcement, not based on something that we actually did to enforce the laws at that time, but something that is just made up. And I'd like to offer also the contrast that when Brad Schimmel was the Attorney General, he was allowing polluters, big global companies like 3M, who were violating air pollution laws, not having the proper controls on their factories. He was letting them off with less than a slap on the wrist, saying that as long as they upgraded their controls, that they wouldn't even have to pay a fine. And what that means is that polluters just got away with it. Big corporations pollute, they know exactly what they're supposed to do, and they do less than that to increase their bottom lines, to increase their profits. So unfortunately, under Brad Schimmel as Attorney General, polluters got away with it. And I'm afraid that is the record that he brings to the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Yes, it was part of leading a lawsuit that opposed EPA limits on carbon emissions. And I think another issue that's liable to come up is the way that he led a 20-state lawsuit, I believe it was, looking to overturn the Affordable Care Act. And he noted that as much in his defeat back in 2018, that he blamed part of his loss on how people felt about having pre-existing conditions covered. And in my mind, that comes back to what you've talked about earlier in terms of your own personal values about healthcare decisions, about the right to vote, about democracy, that really you seem to be focused more on protecting or expanding rights rather than looking for ways to limit people's choices about their health or their livelihood.
Right. Pat, I have worked hard throughout my career to protect the rights of Wisconsinites under our laws and under our Constitution. I do that as a judge every day. I worked in both private practice as a lawyer and when I was working for the government as a lawyer to make sure that I was doing everything that I could to protect the rights of ordinary Wisconsinites. My opponent has exactly the opposite record. You referred to the lawsuit that he joined as Attorney General that would have resulted in, if it had been successful, in tens of thousands of Wisconsinites losing access to their health care. He did the same thing when it came to reproductive health care rights for women. Has a long history of attacking and trying to take away access to reproductive health care for women. I, on the other hand, worked hard when I was in private practice to make sure that doctors who provide reproductive health care to women could continue to provide those services without having to be afraid of losing their medical licenses or even being prosecuted with felonies for providing health care to women. So I think that is a big point of contrast. And, I view the law as a tool to protect people, to protect their rights. And that's the perspective I'm bringing to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And I will always use common sense, look at the purposes of the law, look at what it was intended to protect, and making sure that I am putting people at the forefront of my legal decisions and protecting them.
And before we forget, you did come into this race with 4 rather noteworthy endorsements. The entire current progressive majority, Justices Ann Walsh Bradley, who is departing this seat, Janet Protasewicz, Rebecca Dallett, Jill Karofsky. Not a bad way to get a campaign launched, along with all the other support that has come since that time for Judge Susan Crawford, Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate. Judge, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Pat. Really was a pleasure.
We will wrap up today's show right after this. You're Up North. Ahem. La 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 la.
All right.
The glamorous business of radio.
Telling you, all glam all the time.
Yeah.
Squillions and squillions of dollars, limousines, prime rib for snacks.
Swimming
It's
pools, movie stars.
just Texas tea.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's us living the dream.
Yeah. All right.
Or as Tony says from Ashland, Jane! Exclamation point. That's all that's really necessary. Jane Matnair is with us again, as always, striking the Old West photo pose right behind Mr. Bach. There we go. Perfect. To tell us what to find.
All right, watch it, lady. Watch it.
Sorry.
What to find on Matnair on Air, weekdays from 10 a.m. to noon.
And Greg, too.
And Greg, too. Should I have not put that in parentheses?
Whatever.
Sorry. Okay. All right.
He is an integral part of the show, Pat. You know that.
Yes. Integral Greg. That's what we know him as. You, young lady, neglected to tell me during our visit last week that you were having a birthday during said week. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you so much. I'm at the age now, Pat, where it's like if people forget, that works out fine for me. It's like, let's just pretend I'm as old as I was last year and everything is good.
It could, but where's the party in that? So did you have any kind of festivities?
It was on a Thursday. My husband got me roses, which was lovely.
There. That's nice.
I'm going out to dinner with some girlfriends next Friday to celebrate.
Okay.
And that was about the extent of the festivities.
Excuse me, we had pastries here.
We did have pastries. Greg and Calvin sprung for my favorite Kringle, which was fantastic. Yes.
Okay.
And so it was lovely. I am still alive.
Yes, true. I mean, there is always that, but of course, I have to give the obligatory broadcasting joke of, I mean, you're at an age now where a lot of folks are. Why are you still working at this age? To which you respond, I work in radio.
Well, there's that, because I really enjoy it, Pat. I've been in this business a shockingly long time, and I love civic media. I love the people here. I love our mission. It is different than any other place I've ever worked before, and I am just delighted to be here. I think.
Oh, this is an awkward time for me to read this note from Sage. I will.
Gee, Jane, it's been great. Sorry, we got to cut you loose.
Yeah. No,
that would be typical radio too. It's like
I was going to say you'd be no different than some of the folks at those TV stations recently around the state.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So no, I am overjoyed to be part of civic media.
How many stations have you worked at over the years?
2, 3, 4. I think this is my 5th. I haven't been fired as much as many others in radio.
That's a good way to put it.
Which I don't know. I'm either I should shoot for that or I should be happy with where I am. So I think I was fired twice.
Did I was going to ask, did you ever have a firing that was handled especially poorly, or were they are they rather civil affairs, or because some people they get fired by Zoom, and things like that nowadays?
Oh yeah.
No, that hasn't happened. But I remember one in particular. It was the program director called me in and said, "Yeah, I need to talk to you." And I go in his office, and the general manager is in there, which is never a good sign.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Have a seat." And I said, "Yeah, that's okay. I'll stand.
Yeah.
You can just tell me to my face. We'll get along just fine."
That happened to me once. It wasn't in radio, but I was in a job, and the president of the company said, "Greg, can I come talk? Can you come talk to me?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm about to get fired." And I'm walked past the HR. HR isn't in their office. And I walk in, it's the president, the CEO, and the HR guy.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, here we go.
The trifecta. Was there a bodyguard as well, a bouncer or something?
I was going to say executioner.
I mean, they said like, well, Greg, we've been going through some hard. I go, you know what? Am I being let go? He goes, yeah. I'm like, let's just get to that.
Yeah.
I don't need a preamble.
Well, we shouldn't be dwelling on this, but but I do know that there have been some rather colorful, firings in the broadcast business overall.
Oh, there's no question. I worked with a man who had his cancer came back, and that's when they fired him. I heard a story about a guy who was in the hospital recovering from a heart attack, and management called him and fired him.
Wow.
So it's always been a big, warm, fuzzy business.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Yikes. What do you have coming up on the show this week?
Mr. Global Matt Randolph is going to be joining us Mondays with Mr. Global. He is an oil and gas industry expert, and Greg found this on YouTube. He has a whole introductory video it's about 37 minutes, where he explains how he became Mr. Global, essentially. And you don't just get to say, hey, I'm an oil and gas expert. That is actually something that you have to apply for and be granted. So we're going to learn a little bit more about the real Mr. Global. We're going to talk about, of course, the incoming president promising to drill, baby, drill, and how that's going to solve all our problems. And Matt Randolph has told us before that simply isn't going to happen. Oil companies and natural gas companies aren't going to drill if they're not going to make money.
Yeah, exactly. Tony asks on YouTube if any of us have seen Landman yet. This new one with Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah.
He binged it over the weekend, which I don't know how related that is, but it's about oil drilling in Central Texas.
It's really, I want to ask him today. I just want to be like, how accurate is this to you? And it's a good show. We watched the first 8 episodes in a sitting, and we watched the last 2 are out now, so it's fun. It's a fun show. It's Taylor Sheridan. It's full of drama.
Exactly. Right. No doubt there. Jane, Matt, and Eric, catch her and Greg weekdays, 10 a.m. to noon. Thank you both very much. Have a wonderful week. Good start to the week, you
Thanks
guys.
a lot.
All right. Thanks to our guests here, Judge Susan Crawford and to Selena Heller. Tomorrow on the program, we will have former Governor Martin Schreiber will be joining us live this time to talk about Alzheimer's and being a caregiver. And we'll also talk to Hans Breitenmoser, as we often do, a dairy farmer from the Merrill area. And he's bringing along a friend, Sheila Everhart from the Wisconsin Agricultural Tourism Association. Is going to talk about ag tourism. It is probably a much bigger deal than you might appreciate here in Wisconsin. So stick around for that tomorrow. Up North News is the Wisconsin outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. Follow us at upnorthnewswi.com. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you tomorrow morning here up north.